and that we are live and rolling. So, 1 Samuel chapter 20. 1 Samuel chapter 20 is where we'll be tonight. For those of you that have the questions there, you'll notice that 19 is on the top of the page. We worked through chapter 19 and back quarter before last now, and we have David on the run. We have Saul already trying to execute his anger on him, and David's wife, Saul's daughter, Michal, is part of the escape plan in chapter 19 that we looked at a quarter ago. And so tonight we're going to get into chapter 20, and Jonathan, Saul's son, is going to become part of the escape plan. So you've got son and daughter of King Saul, who have one married to David, the other befriending David, and those relationships are going to supersede any desire for inheritance, any desire for help or assistance with their father. They are obviously convinced of his anger that is unjustified, and they, obviously feel like he's acting as he has been now. If you go back to chapter 15, he took a rash vow in chapter 15, and so Saul's kind of spiraling down, and David gets promised one of his daughters for killing Goliath in chapter 17, and so Michal is it, and so then that relationship starts, and so just kind of catching up quickly to where we are in chapter 20. David has been anointed. That'd be chapter 16, 1 Samuel. David has been anointed by Samuel to be king. Saul knows that his kingdom is not going to last forever. That'd be chapter 14. So we covered all that last quarter. So Saul has been informed that his kingdom, his throne, his reign will not continue. He's not told who it'll be, but he's just told that it won't be his family. In chapter 16, then David is anointed as Samuel goes to the house of Jesse and anoints the youngest child of Jesse there. And David's a boy, and so we're not told how long it'll be, but we are told who will be the next king. And so there's a lot of things that are unknown here, a lot of knowledge in certain places, but then Saul doesn't know who that's going to be. David's obviously growing in popularity as you get into chapter 18, after he kills Goliath and he comes back and they're celebrating, Saul's thousands and David's 10,000s. And so David is clearly showing some favoritism, if you will, is clearly being shown some divine blessings, if you will. He's clearly rallying the people of Israel, and so because of all of that, it could be that Saul is beginning to get, obviously threatened by David's popularity, and so he, in his anger and in his jealousy and in his bitterness, he's now wanting to kill him. And like I said, in chapter 19, Saul's daughter, David's wife, basically helps him to execute this plan to escape and tricks him and makes it look like David's in the bed and all of that. And that's where we ended. And David has fled and escaped, and he comes to Samuel in Ramah in chapter 19. Chapter 20 then. Verse 1, Then David fled from Neoth in Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, What have I done? What is my guilt? And what is my sin before your father that he seeks my life? And he said to him, Far from it. You shall not die. Behold, my Father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. And why should my Father hide this from me? It is not so. But David vowed again, saying, Your father knows well that I have found favor in your eyes. And he thinks, Do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there is but a step between me and death. Jonathan said to David, Whatever you say, I will do for you. And David said to Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit at the table with the king, but let me go that I may hide myself in the field till the third day at evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me to return to Bethlehem, his city, for there's a yearly sacrifice there for all the clan. If he says good, it'll be well with your servant. But if he's angry, then know that harm is determined by him. Therefore deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. But if there is guilt in me, kill me yourself. For why should you bring me to your father? Jonathan said, Far be it from you. If I knew that it was determined by my father that harm should come to you, would I not tell you? And David said to Jonathan, Who will tell me if your father answers you roughly? Jonathan said to David, Come, let us go out into the field. So they both went out in the field. And Jonathan said to David, The Lord, the God of Israel, be witness. When I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow or the third day, behold, if he is well disposed toward David, shall I not then send and disclose it to you? But should it please my father to do you harm, the Lord do so to Jonathan. And more also, if I do not disclose it to you, send you away that you may go in safety. May the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. If I am still alive, show me the steadfast love of the Lord that I may not die. And do not cut off your steadfast love from my house forever, when the Lord cuts off every one of his enemies of David from the face of the earth. Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, May the Lord take vengeance on David's enemies. And Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to him, Tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed, because your seat will be empty. On the third day, go down quickly to the place where you will hide yourself when the matter is at hand, and remain beside the stone heap, and I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send the boy, saying, Go find the arrows. If I say to the boy, Look, the arrows are on the side of you, take them, then you are to come. For as the Lord lives, it's safe for you, and there is no danger. But if I say to the youth, Look, the arrows are beyond you, then go, for the Lord has sent you away. And as for the matter of which you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between me and you forever. So David hid himself in the field. When the new moon came, the king sat down to eat food. The king sat on his seat, as at other times, and on the seat by the wall. Jonathan sat opposite, and Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Yet Saul did not say anything, for he thought something has happened to him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. But on the second day, the day after the new moon, David's place was empty. And Saul said to Jonathan, his son, Why has not the son of Jesse come to the meal either yesterday or today? Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. He said, Let me go, for our clan holds a sacrifice in the city. And my brother has commanded me to be there. So now, if I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away and see my brothers. For this reason, he's not come to the king's table. Verse 30, Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said to him, You son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame, and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. Jonathan answered Saul his father, Why should he be put to death? What has he done? Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him. So Jonathan knew that his father was determined to put David to death. And Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had disgraced him. In the morning, Jonathan went out into the field to the appointment with David, and with him a little boy. And he said to his boy, "Run and find the arrows that I shoot." As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. And when the boy came to the place of the arrow that Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called after the boy and said, "Is not the arrow beyond you?" And Jonathan called after the boy, "Hurry, be quick, do not stay." So Jonathan's boy gathered up the arrows and came to his master. But the boy knew nothing. Only Jonathan and David knew the matter. And Jonathan gave his weapons to the boy and said to him, "Go and carry them to the city." As soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap, fell on his face to the ground, and bowed 3 times. And they kissed one another and wept with one another, David weeping the most. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, because we have sworn, both of us, in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord shall be between me and you, and between my offspring and your offspring forever.'" And he rose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. Kind of a long chapter, 1 Samuel chapter 20. A lot goes on. Obviously, one big narrative here, but several scenes within the narrative. And at the end of the chapter, we find, and the first question deals with kind of the end of the chapter and working our way back. What was the farewell like for David and Jonathan? Very emotional. Who was more emotional than the other? Did you catch that? It says David wept more. I say more emotional. Maybe that's a hard qualifier there. But the text did tell us, interestingly enough, that verse 41, David was weeping the most. Now, I don't want to imply that David loved Jonathan more than Jonathan loved David or anything like that. I think there was a mutual love here, a mutual respect. And so they were very emotional. There was a very touching moment here. Do you think that David and Jonathan thought this might be the last time we see each other? It's not. I'll not to get ahead of myself, but in chapter 23, they're going to see each other again, and if it's the Lord's will, a few weeks from now, we'll try to get to chapter 23. But obviously they don't know that. You and I have the blessing of reading the record on down, right? But they don't know that, and so in Jonathan's mind, and for David's safety, and even in David's mind for his own safety, this could be it. This could be the last time that they see each other. And so it's a very emotional farewell. What is involved here from Jonathan's standpoint? What's at stake here? From Jonathan's point of view.
David's dead, like his dad wants him to be. He's going to be king there.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know if that's sorted out.
See, Jonathan doesn't know that David's supposed to be king either, that I can tell. I mean, it's not recorded that I can find, Jonathan and Saul are both aware that the kingdom is being taken from their house. So, with that understanding, it would be Jonathan's place to be heir, assuming his father, continued the reign and was able to pass the. So I guess Jonathan was heir apparent, even though we have some information, thanks to Samuel and the prophet there, concerning Saul's wickedness and rebellion and the fact that God's going to punish him in this way. But you catch back there in the middle of the chapter where at the table Saul says to his son, "You have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame." Catch that phrase? What do you make of that? What's Saul saying there? Verse 30. To your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness. Well, I probably can't do it justice, and I don't know what its equivalent would be. Let me just say Saul's mad, okay? We read the words on paper, and I'm not sure that we get all of the feeling behind it. He's looking at his own son. And did you catch what he called his mama? Now you can talk about my daddy all day long, but you better not talk about my mama. You understand? You sure don't call my mama names, right? That's a no-no, right? Now, obviously, this is one of Saul's, obviously, but I've read it 3 or 4 times now, and I almost just feel his blood pressure. I mean, this is the woman that he, bore this child with, and he calls her a perverse, rebellious woman. This is a tough scene right here, and Jonathan's shocked in it all. Jonathan has hurt Saul. Saul is trying to hurt Jonathan, and Jonathan is hurt for David. I mean, there's just a lot going on here because remember in the beginning of the chapter, Jonathan's trying to convince David, you're wrong. My father don't want to do you no harm. I mean, if he was going to do you harm, he would have told me, right? He tells me everything. So he would have told me his plan, but he has said nothing about that. So David, this is all in your mind, and of course, as the chapter transpires, David says, "Well, okay, you go to dinner, and you just see what you learn." And when he gets to the table, and Saul inquires of it, Saul throws his spear at Jonathan in an attempt to kill him, right? At least. Maybe not. Maybe he just, throws it close by, just to kind of scare him real good. I don't know if he actually intended it. He was wanting to hit him, but I'm struggling with him wanting to kill him, take his life, but he's mad. And of course, he's already done that with David, right? He's already made a couple attempts, and now, he's struggling with his spear, ain't he? He's missed about 3 times now, if my memory serves me correctly, back there last quarter. Obviously, in his intense anger, he probably ain't as accurate as he would, and God's in control of, the providence is working through all of this as well, no doubt. But all of this chapter transpires, and then at the end of this chapter, there's this farewell, and there's some very strong feelings here. You remember what the text says of Jonathan? It says twice now we've heard this phrase. How much did he love David? Verse 17, as his own soul. He loved David as his own soul. That's the second time we've had that terminology. And obviously there in verse 17, Jonathan is trying to convince David, hey, I'm looking out for you. And I don't want my father to do any harm to you. And if I learn of that, I'm gonna let you know that. Ultimately, Jonathan entered a covenant, didn't he? Jonathan and David both, a covenant here. Who was the witness to the covenant? Who David say was in the field with him? God. That's a pretty good witness, isn't it? You ain't gonna change the contract or the covenant or adjust the terms, are you? I had a situation this afternoon. I'll spare you the details, but I thought I was paying for something, and I called to find out that there was a stipulation that I didn't know about. Well, now I'm trying to figure out why I was paying it in the first place if there was a stipulation, right? The moment I needed it, there's a stipulation that it don't cover, and so what's the point of it to start with, right? You ever get into contracts like that, and I'm sure it was in the fine print somewhere, obviously. Maybe they adjusted it somewhere, I don't know. That's their policy now, Maybe it was whenever I started paying for it. But if God is your witness, whatever the terms are, they're set, right? In the presence of God, David says, what was the covenant? What was the agreement? Whatever word you want to use. Look at the details of it in verse 8. David's clear in his record, isn't he?